Welcome to Navigate STL Schools, a podcast. My name is Anastasia, and today we are here with City Hope. Pastor Mike, the CEO of City Hope, and Mike, I know that's really ironic, right? Who is the Director of Operations for City Hope. Before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I'm Pastor Mike Robinson, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to create this work called City Hope and work with our unhoused community members, really in depth over the last, I would say, 7 years. Although City Hope is only 4 years, but before it was really formatted and created, we were still doing some work in the city of St. Louis.
Awesome.
And good morning. I'm Mike Willis, Director of Operations for City Hope St. Louis. I've been a part of the organization for about 4 years. My passion is just to care for people. So I wanted to be around an organization that was trying to do better things for those that are marginalized, those that have been left out. So I'm glad to be here and glad to be a part of this organization.
So before we jump into our set of questions, what is City Hope? Is it a church? Is it a ministry? Is it a mission?
Well, great question. City Hope is an organization. It's an agency that was birthed out of our church. Our church is Hope Nation International Church, and we have always been committed and dedicated to helping those that are marginalized and those that are in underserved communities. It's an agency that came about because there was a need in our city. The winter vortex came through our city 2017, and we just responded to the call. We answered the call. Our church stepped up to the plate to begin to house individuals because we realized there was going to be a huge deficit in the amount of shelter beds that were available to unhoused community members. The Reverend Larry Rice New Life Evangelistic Center was being closed down, and there were approximately 200 or so beds that they would make available during winter seasons, and those were not going to be online. So we opened up the doors of our church.
I remember winter 2017, and that was a really, really cold one.
It was bad, yeah.
So before we jump into talking about City Hope and working with unhoused people, what's your education story? Like, what's your K-12 education story? Like, each of you, how did you go through, and how does that connect to the work that you do today?
I'm really glad that you asked that because mine was a little challenging. I remember, and actually being in this neighborhood really helped me to
Wait,
to
this
think.
neighborhood? You were in the Delmar neighborhood?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay.
So went to elementary school, kindergarten at Clark Elementary School. There, I'm sorry. Yeah, Clark right there. And so, yeah, I was 5, and things didn't go so well in kindergarten for me. My mother was a single mom, and she had me in I was in kindergarten. She was pregnant with my sister, and just trying to, navigate things for herself. Went to the school, and I remember coming home and mom asking me, "What did you do today?" And I said, "We colored." Because every day that's what happened. A bucket of crayons would be put on the table, and you would get a coloring sheet. She didn't like that, and so being the driver that she was, she shifted, and we moved to University City because my aunt and uncle lived there, and they talked so much about how amazing the University City school district was at that time. And so we shifted and went to elementary. I went to first grade there, but I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared for first grade, and so I got held back because my reading levels were not up to par. And so held back in the first grade to do that. That was the last time that my reading scores ever were at that level. Once I stayed back and got the fundamentals there, they always excelled. But I still had some challenges in school. Later, finding out when I'm working at Bridge of Hope, I'm graduated out of high school, graduated, and literally struggled through every phase of that, struggling through all of those phases. I get ready to go through Bible college. I go to OSU and take classes there, struggling. But what I'd done was created these little things in my mind to help me out. So I'm in St. Louis. I'm connected to Bridge of Hope with Robin Boda and Steve Boda, and she has this thing called Hope Education. I started volunteering there at Hope Education and working with young people that have dyslexia. And so I'm working and I'm realizing that some of the techniques that Robin has showed us to teach the kids, these were things that I had been doing in my mind on my own without any teacher or anybody recognizing that this kid could be dyslexic. And so one day after class, I said, Robin, I think, some of this stuff that we're doing, I can relate to. I think I'm dyslexic. And she said, I could have told you that. You didn't know that. She thought that I knew, and that was why I was so passionate about tutoring the kids. And so I found this out, and it was eye-opening to me, but it explained a lot. And I definitely would, want other kids, and I see so many of them that have these challenges, but they're just not aware.
Wow.
Well, for me, it's totally different. I grew up in a very rural community in Tennessee. And in Tennessee, back then, we had one primary school, I had one elementary school, and one high school. So there was not a lot of options to do different schooling. There wasn't, you just went to that school and that's what you did. So I went through those programs, and I would say that I had a good foundation of learning and education because of that, because there wasn't a lot of options. So they had to make sure that those schools were meeting the expectations, not just of our community, but of the overall state as well. And when I graduated from there, I went through to school, a college in Kentucky, Murray State University, go Racers, where I continued to excel. And it's really because of the foundation that I received in that really small town. And when I say it's small, there's 2,000 people. Wow. We just got our first stoplight 2 years ago. So it is rural, and it was great. And leaving college and moving to St. Louis, I never understood how many schools were in St. Louis, how many other options there are in this area, which causes me to understand a little bit more about the challenges that families and parents face because they're not able to navigate that. Hence, Navigate STL is there to assist with that. Mm-hmm. But it's amazing how many schools and options that are in this area that causes a lot of challenges.
Yeah, that is actually a true story, and I think that it causes a lot of challenges, particularly around unhoused students. I really love your story, Pastor Mike, in talking about how your mother stood up and advocated for you when you weren't getting what you needed from the school system and put you in an environment that challenged you. But I also am really struggling to understand, like, we've all seen that Cosby episode where he comes home and, he finds out he's dyslexic at the community center and whatnot. How do you think your educators kind of missed that, and how did that inspire this? I noticed, like, in my mind, it's like everything that you've worked in is a product of hope. So how did that all correlate for you?
And, I'm not sure if, well, I know Cosby wasn't. I'm a little older, so
Sorry.
Cosby. That segment hadn't aired yet.
When Theo had the sex.
Yeah, I remember it. I think I was probably about in the sixth grade at that time, maybe or so. And because that was a thing at our house, Thursday nights, Cosby Show night. But I think that sometimes, just looking back at it, they weren't taught how to teach individuals that had these challenges. They weren't taught how to identify it. So they got into this structure and this routine of this is how you teach. And everybody falls in that block. You teach this way. These are the methods. This is the methodology that we use here in this school. And so that's the way they continued on with it. And then, the other challenges that individuals faced, even though we felt like we were in a better school district, but our classes always ran 25 to 35 individuals. That was difficult for one teacher without an assistant to be able to push through.
That is a true statement.
And I just want to add to that, to my story, because I did say that there was one middle, one primary, one high school. But I think they missed an opportunity back then because they did not have some of those special classes or those classes that were needed to be able to recognize some of those things at an early age. So I do believe that it's important to be able to grow and change from that. And I think the school district that I grew up in, has done that. But they had to go through and see that there were other learning challenges or learning disabilities that needed to be brought out and needed to be developed.
I really love how you guys both mentioned on like this progression in education, but also highlighting that, one teacher can't do it all. And when we discussed City Hope, you talked about working with the unhoused population, and that stemming from just seeing the need in 2017. But one of the things that really stands out to me, especially as we've learned more in this role, is that students are unhoused also. Children are unhoused. And I would really love to hear, as we dive into some of the work that City Hope does, what are some of the common misconceptions that are aligned with unhoused people, and how do we support what you guys do?
I think one of the biggest myths or things that out there are that many unhoused individuals are not educated individuals, and because in one of the biggest things that our staff are trained to do is to engage. We're not just here to have you come in the door and answer these questions for this assessment, this paperwork. No, there's a level of engagement that we want to have, and we often are, we get overly involved, and it crosses the line sometimes, but we learn to be okay with that because of the level of trust that we want the guests that come into our facilities to have with us. We tell our story, they tell their story. There's a level of trust that is built there, and then brick walls begin to come down. And you begin to find out just, their story and what their background is. And many of them are super, super smart individuals. And then there are those, that, as you mentioned, that have children that are along with them and just lack the ability to be locked in to a particular school, or they don't know that they have the right to be able to continue to attend those schools while they are in an unhoused situation.
You mentioned that a lot of the individuals who are unhoused tend to be really, really smart, but somehow are uneducated. What do you think is kind of a correlation between unhoused persons and the quality of their primary education?
I think a lot of times what I see is that somewhere along the line, there was a disconnect. There was a disconnect, and whether it came from um, their immediate home structure or or some other challenging situation that caused them to disconnect from school systems, and that caused them to, possibly no longer be attached to that, and they got education in other ways. Um, some that may have been incarcerated, and they got education in that manner and in that way, that form. But there are various things that have caused individuals to have that disconnect, and so one of the things that we advocate for on a regular basis is that, hey, what are your educational goals? Because it's never too late to be what you want to be. And we say that often to them, and give them the access to the resources that may be out there that can assist them in that way.
So you mentioned the disconnect from the school system and parents not knowing that they have the right to stay in the same space or in the same district or same school. What does it look like for children to be unhoused, and how is that different from the perception of like sleeping on the streets and in tents and everything else that individuals assume about unhoused people?
Yeah, they can be unhoused, and um, the definition of it is, living in stable, consistent places. They could be living from, they can be going from one aunt's house to the others, to the grandmother's, and couch surfing. That is the definition of being homeless in our community. And so that being unstable has a huge part to play on a child's life and development, and as well as their educational development. So if they're going from one school district to the other, that can be very challenging for a kid, and we've seen some of those challenges. But what I will say about what I have seen with unhoused students, many of them are relentless in their fight to be educated. We have an amazing story of one student who came to a shelter with his mother. And this was one of our smaller sites. So we really got to intimately know them. And we found out that he had just graduated from high school. And he wasn't even sure if he was going to be able to attend his graduation. His mom had some mental health challenges, and she just was not in the right frame of mind to be even thinking about his graduation. However, he got himself to graduation. He caught a couple of buses and got there. And he graduated, got his diploma, but they were ended up in our shelter. He expressed, he was real quiet. And so one of our resource specialists, she just asked him, what do you want to do now? He said, I want to go to college, but I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do so. I'm going to have to work to take care of my mom. So she explained that to him, that you can do both, and we're going to help you to do both. And so we rallied our team around him, as well as other community members, to get him where he needed to be. We eventually, first he got enrolled at Harris Stowe State University, where he is in his second year, doing amazing. We're super proud of LG for the amazing job that he's doing. He's still working at the same job. He's still working at Lowe's. Mom is in a home now, and is stable, and just knowing that it takes that village to be able to insulate a kid like that, and to ensure that he's able to reach his educational goals.
I love that emphasis on community, on village, on wrapping your hands around it, especially when it relates to children. I know my first encounter with homeless children or unhoused children was working in the East St. Louis school district, and understanding that, the kids aren't sleeping on the streets. They're going from aunt to uncle to friend to aunt to uncle to grandparent back to friend. And sometimes they're trying to hide it. Sometimes they're open to communicating. But all the time they're trying to make their lives better regardless of the situation, because they didn't choose to have their parents fall on hardship or not be able to support them. And so I'm wondering, like, as we go through this discussion and talk about like that amazing young man and that amazing story, just to care enough about his mom to defer his own education to make sure that she was cared for, what is one of the most unexpected things that you've encountered in the work that you all do?
That's I guess because I've been doing the work for a little while. It was the educational system that helped me to get into working in this field. I was in a leadership class, and one of the requirements for us was to live one weekend on the streets of St. Louis, downtown St. Louis, and our team was, real savvy. So we said, well, we're not sleeping outside. We're going to go to a shelter. And I remembered that there was a place called the Red Door Church that people talked about, and they had shelter. But it was for women and children. But they allowed us to sleep there. We bartered and said, we'll cook dinner and you allow us to stay. And they did. That's what sparked the bug in me and my fellow students, class of 92 from U City. U City is kind of cultish. I'm sorry. But we every holiday season we would get together. When we came home from schools, Thanksgiving, Christmas, we knew where we would meet up. We would meet up at Larry Rice. We would meet up at Peter and Paul, and we would do outreach and shelter work there. So it was in that system, in the school system. I mean, the school system that caused me to be able to get into the work that we do. So I've been able to see so much, and so boy, unexpected is, I don't know. You have one?
I don't know if I have something unexpected, but for me, I never really encountered homeless or unhoused individuals. Again, growing up in a small town, I never saw that. So when I moved to St. Louis in '95, I experienced my first unhoused person living on the street. And I was like, first of all, I was like, ooh, get away from me. You have that. But then as I kept seeing them and kept just noticing them, that they were human. They just might have fallen on some hard times or some situation that caused them to be in the situation that they're currently in. And then when I began to work with City Hope, it drove home that they are humans, that they had some challenges, but they are needing some support and some care, some love, and most of all, to treat them with dignity. A lot of unhoused community people have been treated really bad. Mm-hmm. They have been, just looked down upon, talked about, even hit. I mean, it's a lot. So I think the surprising thing for me, or the shocking thing, is how intelligent a lot of them are, and how much. I mean, I never forget me meeting someone in our shelter, because like Bishop said, or Pastor said, we are definitely hands-on. We get to know our guests. And I never forget, I sat down with a man, and he just started to talk about his life story. He was a lawyer. He had a house, he had cars, family, and he just hit a roadblock and lost everything. The family walked away from him, everything. He lost everything. And that hit me to be like, that can happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. That can happen to any one of us. So that's when I became so passionate and so caring, and just really, I've always been caring and passionate, but I think that drove it home even more for me to understand that I have to do something. Whatever I can do is to assist that organization, this organization, or organizations that we partner with, to be able to make it better for our unhoused community.
I think for me, one of the things that really hit home is, like you said, houselessness can happen to anyone. Homelessness can happen to anyone. And there's always this conception, like, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, take a shower and go get a job and stay in a shelter for 2 weeks. And then you can get an apartment and be a normal person. That doesn't work for everybody. And when I heard you all say, unhoused people don't have IDs. You can't get a job without ID. You can't get an apartment without ID. You can't do anything, and you don't exist without a birth certificate, driver's license, form of state ID. How do you all support unhoused people in reclaiming their lives, reclaiming their dignity, reclaiming their, for all intent and purposes, humanity by having these documents?
I was just thinking as you were asking that question that it's very similar to what you do for individuals and in navigating them through the education system. We have to do that through the systems of city government and housing and things like that, because it is a tangled web out there. And so we have to literally navigate individuals who may have never understood what it means to be able to have to go and get these things on their own. So we're navigators in that respect, getting them to get their birth certificate and their ID, getting health insurance and connecting them. A lot of them won't even go to the doctor or to the clinic because they are afraid that, hey, I don't have insurance. I can't get served. Mm-hmm. So they don't even know what they are able to receive because they are so unaware of how the systems operate. And so that's one of the biggest things that we have to do, is to get individuals navigated through that. And even for us that are aware of the systems that exist, it can be challenging to get someone on a prioritization list. I mean, just to get somebody all of the necessary things that they need, and then have them to put on a list of hundreds of individuals in this city, and they have to then wait. But then you have shelters that say, well, we're only open to you for 180 days. What if it takes longer? And it typically does. It typically does before their number is called on this list. So we have to continue to navigate them through these various systems.
How do they get on the list if they don't have phone numbers? Like, this is fascinating to me. Like, how do you call a homeless person back?
Yeah, and that again, our job is to take those things, get rid of those things that will hinder or be a barrier to them being able to get those calls and things like that. So we partner with the free cell phone individuals and agencies that are out there, tablets and all of that, to make sure that they have the access that is going to be needed to receive those calls. And then we have such amazing, caring case managers and workers. They'll put their numbers on there for them so that they won't miss those calls.
Awesome.
And I was just going to add to that, often also working through that, you're also working with people that may have some mental health challenges, mm-hmm. that don't remember where they were born or don't remember mm-hmm. any information. So that's where we come in to really try to get to the root cause, try to understand how can we find out this information, and really building that rapport. It's based on the rapport that we have built that they're able to open up. And once they open up, that's when we start to move in those avenues of being able to get birth certificates and driver's license and all those things. But I want to also put out there that it takes longer than 180 days.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to think about, just with us that have a job and have things that are going for us, it takes time to get a driver's license. You just don't go in and get it the same day. You got to fill it out, pass the test, and then they mail it to you. And then that could take weeks. So it's all a process. And I think a lot of people think that it can be quick. Now, some people can move quickly, but there's other that it may take 6 months or a year to be able to get some of these documents.
One of the things that we see often is that, and it is a good thing on one hand, but really sad on the other, is that for the first 3 years of City Hope's existence, we would see some of the same individuals season after season. Every winter, we would see some of the same individuals come in for shelter at our facilities. Great because we have a rapport with them and all of that, but sad because your situation hasn't been changed. We haven't got you to the place where you can be housed. And so we look at, trying to find out the root cause of that. And it really comes down to, as Mike was mentioning, that rapport that we build with them, their ability to open up and to trust us and to share information with us, which helps us to dive deep into their life situation. And once we get in there and once we really fully understand, then we can attach them to other resources that can really help them out.
I think one of the most eye-opening things that I've ever experienced in life is that someone told me one time that it is almost easier for unhoused people to remain unhoused because you get used to not having and to be put into an environment that it can all go away and to have to maintain and to have to do all of these things, especially if you're undergoing mental illness or other life circumstances, can just be immensely challenging. How do you encounter that, and how do you inspire hope for these individuals to help them see that, this is okay and it can be something that's sustainable in their life?
Yeah, a lot of them their minds will go into what we call survivor mode, and they will get stuck in that mode of thinking and playing things out. They'll live in this survival mentality for years. And so when we come along and we come into their life, we're trying to actually change a mindset, change a way of thinking. And that's not easy. We can, for us that are housed and, we have challenges changing some of our thinking. And so for somebody that has for years been in this mode and chronic homelessness, it can be super challenging to get them to begin to see things a different way, to help them to change their perspective concerning how the housing situation works, and that there are some people that are out here that really want the best for you. So yeah, it can be challenging to get that mentality and that mindset changed over.
And speaking of a mindset shift, we're a show about education, right? And a lot of families and kids who experience unhousedness is really don't tell anybody. Shh, don't tell anybody. They're going to take you away, or we're going to get in trouble, or X, Y, and Z. But there are laws that protect children that are unhoused, such as McKinney-Vento. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so grateful for that being on the books. And what City Hope has done is partnered with St. Louis Public Schools and other school districts to ensure that when we have an individual that comes in to our shelter, that we get them plugged into that student in transition program for that particular district, so that they can receive the full access of what that bill entails, giving the student and the parents the right to access education at the place of their choice immediately. And that's what I really love about it. You go into a school and say, hey, we're unhoused. This is a letter from the shelter that we stay in. That school district is obligated to educate that kid at that moment.
And they're not at risk of being taken away from their parent.
Not at risk at all of that, and it really opens up. And I love Dr. Deidre Thomas Murray, St. Louis Public Schools, who works in the Students in Transition, who heads that up. She makes sure that they not only get that support, but the other things that are needed and necessary for those that parent and those students to thrive.
And not to just to add to that a little bit, just think about that for those that are listening. Think about how much weight that comes off of that family.
Absolutely.
How much encouraging feelings that calls for that child to be able to know that, hey, yes, I may be unhoused, but I'm still able to learn, that I'm still able to go to school, that I'm still able to interact with people and kids my own age. That is a huge thing that will shift the trajectory of that young person's life and that parent, because they are now seeing it's not hopeless out here. I'm going to be able to come back from this, and I'm going to be able to move through and become what I'm supposed to become.
And you can also just factor in that when that kid is at school, they're going to have breakfast and they're going to have lunch, and there are some new programs that are out there that even help to ensure that they have dinner. And on the weekend, there are backpacks full
Operation
of
Food Search,
Yeah, that gives them that, and I love it because they get to grab that backpack and go home, and there's something for them to eat for the weekend, and even the summer programs as well. So, but being able to be in school consistently helps to ensure that kid is nourished.
One of the things that we always say at Navigate STL Schools is that a school building is so much more than just the place that you go to get educated. For a lot of kids, it's your caring adult, it's your safe space, it's your breakfast, it's your lunch, it's your access to medical care, it's your access to counselors, it's access to a support system that can really build a lot up for you. And I'm so glad that these programs exist to help students who are experiencing houselessness, because you do need to build in that sense of hope. And you can't have a child be expected to live in all of that secrecy, because then the stress is too much.
For that young mind, it's a lot. It's a lot on them.
And speaking of inspiring hope, this is like such a weird transition. I want to talk to y'all for hours, but like this is not supposed to be this long. Speaking of inspiring hope, you guys are hosting a gala this year. Can you talk to us about it and what inspired you all to put this together?
Well, this is our second annual gala that we've held, and when we originally did it last year, it was to celebrate coming out of winter, because winter for us it's challenging. And so we were celebrating that and the work that had been done, and also raising funds, because it costs to do this work. It costs to do this work. And at one point, we had over 10 shelters opened in one season, over 350 individuals being housed each night in that season, 115 employees. Again, that cost a whole lot. So we wanted to celebrate. We also wanted to help to raise some funds for the agency. This year, we did it a little bit different, because I recognize that there is some challenges that are for those that are out here doing the work, those that are really making the difference. And I wanted to celebrate the difference makers this year, those that are in the community, that are boots on the ground doing the work, tirelessly, making things happen for our community members, our unhoused community, as well as our broader community. We wanted to celebrate those individuals, and most of them, if not all, they are definitely not looking for any of this notoriety. They're not camera chasers at all. They do it because this is what they're passionate about. It's what they love to do, and it's because they are committed to making a difference. So we wanted to celebrate those individuals and help them to know that you are seen. We see the work that you do. We recognize the work that you do, and we're thankful and grateful for what you do. Thus, Navigate STL is one of the recipients of our awards this year because of the amazing work that you all do. I became familiar while in Focus St. Louis class, and I often, and you don't like when I say this, but Anastasia is one of the smartest individuals that I absolutely know, and we are so grateful for the work that you do in helping individuals navigate this educational web.
Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate that. And you just highlighting the work that we do in the community. It's so interesting the ways that so many social services organizations overlap in the way that we impact the community. I always tell people that we help people navigate the education system, but you can't navigate the education system if you're unhoused. You can't navigate the education system if you're hungry. You can't navigate the education system if you don't have access to health care. And so we really do work hard to partner with other organizations and hopefully highlight them in a way that helps people to get the services and support that they need. And you all taking this opportunity to highlight us in return is really, really powerful and impactful for us. So thank you guys so much.
And just like we said earlier, it takes a village to raise people back up. It takes a village to be able to bring everything together. So it's not one person that's greater than the other. But if you Navigate STL works with City Hope St. Louis, works with BJC, all of us working together makes a better community for us all. So that's really why we're putting on this gala, is for the community to see that people are making a difference in people's lives.
Now, if regular people who are not involved in this work want to make a difference in the lives, how do they support City Hope? How do they support unhoused community members? How do they help amplify the work that you do to get more unhoused people in touch with resources to improve their quality of life?
That's a great question. And with the gala, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. But one with the gala, which is going to be on Saturday, February the 24th, here at Delmar Divine, at 5501 Delmar Divine in the Burgess Family Foundation Conference Center. It begins at 6 p.m., but you can go to our website, which is www.cityhopestl.org, click events, and then you'll be able to purchase either individual tickets for $75, but I'm challenging everybody to buy a table, which is a table of 8 for $500. So it's a discounted price. So all of the money that's raised will be able to help us to continue to do the work that we're doing. We are actually excited about where we are right now. We are in the process of renovating one of our shelter spaces that will have showers, that will have kitchen access, that will have clean spaces to do laundry, all of those types of things. And it's through the generosity of the community, it's through the generosity of some donors and some sponsors that we're able to do that.
Now, if people can't make it to the gala, how else can they support?
They can always, we are receiving gifts at all times. So you can always go to our website to donate. We also will be needing, and we can get this information out on our social media platforms, but we'll be needing some toiletries.
You guys are on social media? How can they find you to organize
We're
these
at
donations?
City Hope St. Louis.
Regular City Hope.
Yes, not City of Hope, but City Hope St. Louis. I know a lot of people say it's City of Hope, but we are City Hope St. Louis, and you can go to our social media websites. We need toiletry items, socks. There's just a lot of things. And you can also call our office, which is 314-904-HOPE, which is 314-904-4673. We're in the office Monday through Friday, and if we're not there, you can always leave a message, but we're always open to receiving donations of that magnitude, and you will be surprised the amount of food costs. You know how much food costs for your individuals' houses. Just imagine us housing and feeding 30 to 40 people 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, needing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we have been known not to just give them a sack lunch.
Yeah.
We provide a nutritious meal, hot, nutritious meal. So that takes funds. And the good thing that I can say about City Hope is all that comes in goes back out to those marginalized and unhoused community members. And we partner with a lot of different agencies in the city to be able to make that difference. So you can always reach out to us. And even though our shelter may not be open now, but we're always pointing people in the right direction for resources because we feel that just because we're not able to house individuals right now, there is still a need. So we want to be able to connect them to the resources that they need.
But in the next week or so,
Yes.
that renovated location will be open, and we will be housing individuals. There were a lot of individuals that opened up, and we're grateful for all of those pop-up shelters that happened during this winter snap. But they're closed now, and there are still individuals that are unhoused, and so we're grateful that this new location is going to be open and online starting probably mid next week. They're putting the finishing touches on things now. So definitely reach out to us. Facebook, Instagram, we're there. And that's a good way to send messages as well because we kind of, between us, the leaders, we're always monitoring the social media stuff, and we'll be able to get back with you. So if you want to donate food, if you want to donate winter accessory items, we definitely would love to receive those.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been one of my favorite episodes to record. Until the next time, Navigate STL Schools, a podcast. Thank you, Pastor Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.